Welcome to another huge episode of Triggered. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm actually on a bit of a time change. I'm like halfway around the world, a little jet lagged, but I will just say that when you're overseas, it's actually even clearer that America is supposed to be strong, serious, respected, and even feared when necessary. And then you look back home and you see the Democrat Party losing its mind because the Trump administration is actually, enforcing the law. James Comey, well, he's been indicted for threats against the president over his 8647 seashell post on the beach in North Carolina. And the case is being brought in North Carolina. So we'll continue following that because it's likely just one of his mountain of legal troubles ahead, given all the other shady stuff he was doing as the leader of the FBI and the weaponization of government and, all that stuff we've been talking about and have known about for years. It's finally happening. So here was the latest news from the press conference about it earlier today.
Today, a grand jury sitting in the Eastern District of North Carolina returned an indictment against James Comey on 2 counts. The first count is that on or about May 15th of last year, he knowingly and willfully making a threat to take the life of and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States. Count 2, same day, May 15th, 2025, that the defendant, James Comey, knowingly and willfully transmitting in interstate commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill the President of the United States. Both of these counts carry a maximum term of imprisonment of 10 years. So I think it's fair to say that threatening the life of anybody is dangerous and potentially a crime. Threatening the life of the President of the United States will never be tolerated by the Department of Justice.
Now, you have Lee Zeldin calmly explaining the Supreme Court and Supreme Court precedent, while a Democrat literally melts down like a freshman who just didn't do their homework. Lee's done an incredible job as the head of the EPA. He's a good friend, and he's literally just following the law. But if you follow the law and it's not convenient for the Democrat narrative, you have a serious problem. Then you have Ilhan Omar apparently discovering that World War XI is not actually a thing. I must have fallen asleep during World War III, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Or as she calls it, World War X. These are the people that are making trillion-dollar decisions for our country. She read like World War II as 11, not like it didn't come up with it on her own as like, oh, that's a problem. Yeah, well, I got that wrong. Like, crap, World War XI. I guess never read about that one, but it must be a thing because that's all they do. They regurgitate talking points. So if they think it's real, they don't have to bother to do the research. They don't look beyond it. These are who we choose to run our country. And then, that's kind of a shame. And just breaking today, guys, federal agents are reportedly raiding some daycare Learing centers in Minnesota, probably where Ilhan Omar learned about World War XI. So we're seeing finally some real consequences to the fraud, okay? The rules for us are always different. But real consequences for foreigners stealing your taxpayer dollars. And guys, by the way, these are the same people the media pretends are the ones who make America great. They're the ones that make America special. This is their worldview, to defend fraudsters, right? Bring more of them in. Sure, they can make a couple $1 million doing jack crap, okay, defrauding American taxpayers while Americans actually suffer. No, they're what makes America great. I don't think so. So today, we're going to have some fun with all of this because it's actually unbelievable. We're also going to talk about the cost because this isn't just stupidity, guys. This is stupidity with power and with real consequence to Americans, the people we're supposed to be defending, our country, our citizens. It matters. So guys, make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing, okay? Hit that little like button right now. so you never miss one of these major episodes. If you miss the show here on Rumble, as always, go over to Apple, go over to Spotify, and catch it there. And for all of the top headlines, check out my news app, MXM News, where you can get the mainstream news without the mainstream bias. And of course, don't forget about our brave sponsors for having the guts to support this kind of program.
Invest in the next generation with Y Refi and be a part of the solution for millions of Americans. With Y Refi, you're helping borrowers while investing in the future. Y Refi offers accredited investors fixed rate returns backed by private student loans. Choose a term from 1 to 5 years. Take your monthly interest as income or reinvest it. Totally your choice. To learn more, preview the private placement memo for complete details and call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST. Sponsors like All Family Pharmacy. After everything we saw during COVID and the cover-up, saying we have trust issues with the so-called experts is probably an understatement, guys. They used pressure, lies, red tape to block access to medications that were once easy to get. That can't happen again. And with All Family Pharmacy, it won't. All Family Pharmacy is redefining healthcare. No waiting rooms, no delays, no insurance games. Just direct access to over 200 trusted medications, including ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, antibiotics, emergency kits, and so much more. You can customize your order, have it shipped straight to your door. So go to allfamilypharmacy.com/DONJR, Don Jr., allfamilypharmacy.com/Don Jr., and use promo code DonJr20, DONJR20, for 20% off of your first order. Again, that's allfamilypharmacy.com/Don Jr., or use promo code DonJr20 for 20% off at checkout.
Now, let's get into all of it because it does not get old. And I want to start with something that really sums up the entire Democrat expert class in about 9 seconds. Okay? We hit it already, but Ilhan Omar, member of Congress, someone who the media treats like she's some sort of great thinker, great moral thinker, great intellectual thinker, was talking about the Alien Enemies Act in a clip that's been going quite viral. And somehow she got World War II and she gets there and had this to say. Check it out.
The last time the Alien Enemies Act was invoked, it was used to detain and deport German, Japanese, Italian immigrants during World War XI.
I mean, again, I forgot World War III, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But, I mean, great intellect, Ilhan Omar. I guess she remembered all of those and got right to World War XI. We're far past that, I guess, or at least that's what the Somali Learing centers must be teaching to these members of Congress. These are people, again, making trillion-dollar decisions for us. They don't know, like, one of the biggest parts of American history. They don't even understand. They can care less. The media will pretend like, oh, it's no big deal that she doesn't know those things. Like, I don't know. It feels like there's some basic things you actually have to understand about this country before you actually make legislation for this country. This is the same political class, guys, that lectures you about history, lectures you about democracy, lectures you about fascism, lectures you about the Constitution, and apparently, again, can't get through World War II without turning it into the 11th sequel, like a bad movie. World War XI. I mean, I got nothing else for you guys. At this point, I just want to know who won World War V or World War VI, because apparently I missed a few of these seasons. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm generally on top of these kinds of things, but we missed them. I mean, we seem like we're doing pretty good in world wars. We're undefeated. And I just really want to know, like, do we remain undefeated between 3 and 10 before we get to World War XI? And here's the thing, guys. She wasn't talking about some random topic. She wasn't talking about the Alien Enemies Act. Like she was talking about immigration enforcement. She was talking about national security. She was talking about the power of the United States to defend itself from foreign threats, which she clearly seems to be one of. I mean, that's the serious part. The joke is World War XI. The danger is that these people don't even know. Like, she had no idea. They don't even know the history. They don't know the law. They don't know the stakes. But they're absolutely certain they know more than you. They're absolutely certain they're smarter than you. They don't know the statute, as we'll see with Lee Zeldin, right? They don't know the precedent. They don't know the Supreme Court. They don't know jack shit. Okay, they don't know basic history. But they do know one thing. They know that you are somehow the problem. You want to defend the border? You're an extremist. You want criminals removed? You're cruel and mean and harsh. You want America to act like a, I don't know, radical idea, like a sovereign nation, like a sovereign country? Oh, you're a threat. That's the entire Democrat scam here, guys. Ignorance wrapped in moral superiority. And today, federal agents, the FBI and HSI raided dozens of Somali-owned scam businesses, including the famous Learing Center. We're taking this fraud head on. Okay, 22 search warrants, all tied to fraud investigations involving Somali-owned businesses. And I imagine this is just the start. Check it out.
Large-scale raids targeting federal fraud currently underway. Federal agents seen leaving the Quality Learning Center. And Brooke Taylor has more on that and what they're looking for. Brooke, good morning.
Hi, Bill. Good morning. Yeah, we have had a photographer there at the daycare since this morning, capturing video of those federal agents just going in and out of the building, collecting evidence as part of the DOJ's fraud investigation in Minnesota. Take a look at this video here. Sources tell Fox that federal agents are raiding about 22 businesses across Minneapolis this morning, and sources say many of them are tied to Somali-owned operations. All of this comes after that viral YouTube video from Nick Shirley. It was back in December. In that video, he visited different child care centers. And you'll remember they were either closed or there were just no children inside, despite receiving state child care funding. Now, the location that you're looking at right now, it's the Quality Learning Center. This is the daycare. It went viral. It blew up on social media because of a sign outside with learning that was literally misspelled.
Your tax dollars stolen. They're sent to terror groups overseas, used to line the pockets of fraudsters, running fake daycares, fake small businesses, fake everything. And now there's search warrants, arrests, and prosecutions. And it's really the entire left-wing machine on trial. The SPLC, the Southern Poverty Learning Center, whatever the hell, legal center, like who knows what the hell they're even called. It's just an acronym at this point. Never mattered. They were paying the KKK. Tim Walz was paying Somali fraudsters to set up fake companies. I mean, this is the Democrat Party. It's one giant scam, and it'll continue as long as they can keep kicking back to the Democrat fundraising apparatus. It's no problem. It's other people's money. It's other people's money. We'll just let them do it. I mean, if we win, even if they're stealing billions from Americans, even if it's theft of things that actually could go to real American citizens who pay for them in their taxpayer dollars, doesn't really matter. And by the way, that same scam was on full display in Congress when Lee Zeldin sat down across from Democrat Congressman Rosa DeLauro. Because Zeldin did something Democrats absolutely cannot handle. He knew what he was talking about. Check this out.
The budget proposal reads like a climate change denier's manifesto. When climate change is flooding our streets, poisoning our air, driving up health care and disaster costs, how can the EPA justify abandoning that duty to protect Americans to appease polluters under the false flag of economic growth?
Following the law, Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, where does it say anything about fighting global climate change? Loper Bright, Supreme Court case, you familiar with it?
No, maybe others are not, but let me ask
But that's really important. As a member of Congress, Loper Bright says that we as an agency don't have the authority to get creative if Section 202 of the Clean Air Act.
No, but you don't have, excuse me, you do not have the right to say climate change does not exist, that it's a hoax, and that's where this administration is coming from.
I understand you're upset that you don't know what Loper Bright is. Do you know what the major policies doctrine is?
I'm upset because...
You know what the major policies doctrine is?
You know what, let me just
You're a
say
member
this
of
to you.
Congress. You should know.
Well, you have moved from someone who defended the environment to all of a sudden...
Being very defensive about not knowing the two biggest landmark Supreme Court cases of the last year with regards to your question.
You are very defensive about changing your policy and your positions with regard to the environment.
Okay.
Now, you just tell
Do you want me to tell you what the two biggest Supreme Court
want you to
cases
tell
are of the
me.
last few years?
This is what I want you
Michigan
to tell
versus
me.
EPA,
Whoa.
West Virginia versus EPA.
You know, you're here because you need money from us. So halt for the second and wait for the questions and answer the questions.
Well, I answered your question,
No, you
and you
didn't.
didn't like my answer because
did
you
not
don't know what
answer the
Loper Bright is,
question.
because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is,
Chairman,
because you're asking me about Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, and you don't read it. You don't know what it says.
Listen, and what you want to do is to deny. You want
No,
to.
I actually read the law. I do my homework.
Really?
You're just somebody who likes to have the microphone on. You know what I have to do? I read the law.
No,
I
Mr.
read the
Chairman, I
Supreme
don't have
Court
to listen
cases.
to this, and I would say
No,
that,
what you should do for your
that
constituents is actually read statute.
The budget is at real risk.
Read
Let
your
me tell
Supreme
you,
Court.
This is the Appropriations Committee.
Oh,
you come here.
You care
and
about
you tell
science? Now
us-
you're threatening to defund it?
Oh my God! No, you don't fund
Because
science.
you don't know what Loper
You
Bright
are
is.
climate
Because you don't know what the
deniers.
major policies
You are
doctrine is.
climate
Your message
deniers.
to our folks at the EPA is that you want to
I don't
defund
have
us.
to listen to this BS.
BS. You think I made up these cases?
Yeah, I think you have made up a
I
whole
made
lot of
I made
BS.
up Loper Bright. I made up West Virginia versus EPA. I made up Michigan versus EPA.
Woe is right. What are you doing? Why are
Wait,
you helping
whoa.
polluters?
We're not going to get any very far by talking on top of each other so that no one can hear. If you ask a question, you have to give the witness an
I
opportunity
do not have to
respond.
have the witness attack me. Not
He cited the Clean Air Act. He cited Loper Bright, Supreme Court decision. He cited the major questions doctrine. He explained that the EPA doesn't just get to invent power because Democrats want to claim policy by bureaucratic decree, right? Oh, in the name of climate change, we can just break the law and we can go against it. And she absolutely lost it. And it got even better from there. Check this one out.
when climate change is flooding our streets, poisoning our air, driving up health care and disaster costs, how can the EPA justify abandoning that duty to protect Americans to appease polluters under the false flag of economic growth?
Following the law, Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, where does it say anything about fighting global climate change? Loper Bright, Supreme Court case, you familiar with it?
No, I maybe others are. I'm not, but let me ask.
But that's really important. As a member of Congress, Loper Bright says that we as an agency don't have the authority to get creative if Section 202 of the Clean Air Act
No, but you don't have, excuse me, you do not have the right to
was
say
actually
climate
answering your
change
questions.
does not exist, that it's a hoax, and that's where this administration
I
is
understand
coming
you're
from.
upset that you don't know what Loper Bright is. Do you know what the major policies doctrine is?
I'm upset because
Do you know what the
this
major
is-
policies doctrine is?
You know what, let me just
You're a
say this
member
to
of
you.
Congress. You should know.
Well, you have moved from someone who defended the environment to all of a sudden
Being very
making
defensive
a-
about not knowing the two biggest landmark Supreme Court cases of the last
and
year
you are
with
very,
regards to your
you are
question.
very defensive about changing your policy and your positions with regard to the environment. Now,
Okay.
you just
Do
tell
you want me to tell you what the two biggest
No,
Supreme
I
Court
want you to
cases
tell
are of the
me.
last few years?
This is what I want you
Michigan
to tell
versus
me.
EPA,
Whoa.
West Virginia versus EPA.
You know, you're here because you need money from us. So halt for the second and wait for the questions and answer the questions.
Well, I answered your question,
No, you
and
didn't.
you didn't like my answer because
did
you
not
don't know what
answer the
Loper Bright is,
question.
because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is,
Chairman,
because you're asking me, you're asking me about Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, and you don't read it. You don't know what it says.
Listen, and what you want to do is to deny. You want
No,
to.
I actually read the law. I do my homework.
Really?
You're just somebody who likes to have the microphone on. You know what I have to do? I read the law.
No,
I
Mr.
read the
Chairman,
Supreme Court
I don't have to
cases.
listen to this, and I would say
No,
this,
what you should do
that
for your
this-
constituents is actually read statute.
This budget is at real risk.
Read
Let
your
me tell
Supreme
you,
Court.
This is the Appropriations Committee.
Oh,
you come here.
you care
and
about
you
science?
tell
Now
us-
you're threatening to defund it?
Oh my God! No, you don't fund
Because
science.
you don't know what Loper
You
Bright
are
is.
climate
Because you don't know what the
deniers.
major policies
You are
doctrine is. Your
climate
message
deniers.
to our folks at the EPA is that you want to
I don't
defund
have
us.
to listen to this BS.
The BS. You think I made up these cases?
Yeah, I think you have made up a whole
I made
lot of
I made
BS.
up Loper Bright. I made up West Virginia versus EPA. I made up Michigan versus EPA.
Woe is right. What are you doing? Why
Wait,
are you helping
whoa.
polluters?
That's the whole thing. Right there. Zeldin is saying, here's the statute. Here's the Supreme Court case. Here's what the agency is legally allowed to do. And the Democrat response is basically, stop answering the question with facts because I'm trying to yell at you. Again, it's always just about the soundbite. This is why they hate actual law and statutory interpretation so much. Because for decades, the left built a shadow government inside these agencies. The EPA, DOJ, DHS, Department of Education, all of it, right? They couldn't pass their agenda through Congress, so they handled it through bureaucrats. They couldn't win the argument with voters, so they buried it in regulation. They couldn't get consent, so they got creative. Honestly, I got to give them credit. I mean, it's ballsy, stupid, but ballsy, but you know, they do get what they want. And then the Supreme Court says, actually, no. Agencies don't just get to make up the law. And the left reacts like someone stole their favorite toy. This is the part that drives them crazy, guys. The law is not whatever some left-wing lunatic screams at you in a hearing. Right? That's not how that works. The law is not whatever the climate lobby demands this week. It's not just talking points. The law is the law. The law is not whatever some, random activist with a grant and a pronoun pin and a Ukraine flag says it should be. The law is the law. And when you force them back onto that reality, they absolutely collapse because they have nothing else. And then, because apparently the meltdown wasn't already embarrassing enough, she told Lee Zeldin this. Amazing.
And Compliance Office.
Glyphosate.
Is that your question? I'd say don't. If your cup was filled with glyphosate, I'm telling you as the administrator of EPA, don't drink it.
Thank you so much for agreeing to what we need to
I don't know what the
do
question
all
was.
along.
You're holding up a cup saying glyphosate. Don't drink it. Don't inject it.
Maybe you should try doing that. Okay, excuse me. Okay, I'm going to move on to a second question, Mr. Chairman.
I hope it's not as long as the first one.
Well, it wouldn't have been prolonged, except that it's interesting.
Yeah, we come with facts. We have answers.
Go ahead.
This is a sitting member of Congress in a budget hearing telling the head of the Environmental Protection Agency maybe he should drink herbicide. I mean, the same people who spend every day lecturing us about dangerous rhetoric, the same people who say every Republican joke is violence, words are violence. The only thing that's not violence is actual violence because it's usually committed by Democrats. The same people who think a meme is a national security threat. It's a problem. And then they get to a hearing and basically say, why don't you drink poison? It's always projection with these people. They scream about norms while breaking every single norm in existence. They scream about science while ignoring actual science and the law. They scream about democracy while demanding unelected agencies just run the country and can do whatever they want. They scream about civility right before telling a cabinet official to drink poisonous chemicals. The White House actually had a pretty good response to the whole thing as well. Terrible take, even worse hair. Say what you want, but it's not wrong. I mean, it's hard to believe it. I mean, this is another person, Ilhan Omar is bad enough, but this person actually has real power in the American government. This lunatic freak show actually has real say. But let's pull back the curtain a little bit more. just for a second, because this isn't just about one crazy hearing or exchange. Because for years, they told us the COVID origins conversation was settled. They told us you're a conspiracy theorist if you asked basic common sense questions. They told us you were dangerous if you said, I don't know, guys, wait a second, maybe we should look at the lab in Wuhan that was doing coronavirus research with connections to American funding while the entire world was locked down, masked up, losing jobs, losing businesses, losing family members, losing literally years of their lives. Of course, that was always the most plausible answer. Yet if you ask those questions, they would ruin you. And now, look where we are. The Department of Justice has now indicted David Morans, a former senior advisor to Dr. Anthony Fraud Fauci, for allegedly concealing records during investigations into the origins of COVID. I remember before, when I got canceled for saying, like, I don't know, guys, do you think maybe, just maybe, like, it started in the lab at ground zero of this virus that studies the exact virus in question? Oh, dude, you're not a virologist. It's like, you don't have to be a virologist, guys. You just have to not be freaking retarded, okay? This guy worked as Fauci's senior advisor from 2006 to 2022. During COVID, these people didn't just give advice. They ruled over American life, okay? They told you whether your business was essential or not. They told your kids they could not go to school. They told your grandparents they could not see their families as they're dying. They told churches they could not open. They told you to shut up and comply. They told you, trust the science. It was always a joke. The science was never science. It was narrative. And now, one of Fauci's top advisors is accused of, I don't know, hiding the actual science. So the question is simple. What else did they hide? What else did they delete? What will we never know about? What did they tell Facebook and Twitter to suppress, to make sure it never got out there, even again, if it was always the most logical answer, even if it was like literally the only plausible answer? What else did they call conspiracy theory? Because the truth was simply inconvenient for them. This is why accountability actually matters. Because if there are no consequences, they will just do it again and again and again. The same expert class that locked down the country, wrecked childhoods, destroyed small businesses, and smeared anyone who asked any questions now wants to pretend that, this is ancient history. It's fine. It's not ancient history. They want to tell you that because they want to be able to do it again. It is the biggest public trust scandal of our lifetimes. And the American people deserve every record, every email, every name, every meeting, every funding trail, and every person who helped cover it up. We deserve that. That's the bare minimum. And it's about the difference between people who enforce the law and people who use government as a vehicle for ideology. The same people preaching tolerance are the ones spewing nonstop hate. Just look at the left-wing late-night quacks like Jimmy Kimmel, who's still making assassination jokes after third attempt on my father's life this weekend, after yet another assassination attempt. They can't help themselves. And just when you think the regime media can't get any more sick and twisted, they find a way to sink that much lower. Watch.
But now that room was full of some of the most important political leaders in the country right now.
Right.
Now they know, they've lived it in their own flesh, the fear that our school children go through. Yes. Now they know what it's like to have to jump under a table the way that school children jump under a desk. And we are a country that is vulnerable to this. We have now seen shootings in malls, in churches, in temples, and Walmart.
Yeah. We saw it with the Republicans.
And so, I still don't understand how Congress took no action after Sandy Hook, after 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7 were killed. But maybe now that they have felt the fear themselves, they will do something.
But what I
on
don't
gun
understand
reform.
is how
These people have zero capacity to actually react normally to anything because they're consumed with TDS, right? Trump derangement syndrome. Every second of every hour of every day. It controls everything they do at all times. Like I always say, my father could cure cancer and these people would figure out a way to be against it. It's literally the same on every issue. The border, if they defund illegal alien criminals, then they go and defend illegal criminal aliens. They defend MS-13. I mean, obviously they're the victims here, guys. Blowing up drug boats, they defend the cartels. Homeless drug addicts, guys, they're the victims. No accountability. And suddenly, the most favored nation drug pricing, trade deals, tariffs are all suddenly bad simply because Trump did it. The left uses bureaucracy to stop the country from defending itself. The Trump administration uses lawful power to make the country stronger. We actually have to play by rules. They don't, as evidenced by literally everything that they do. And there's a world of difference. One side invents authority to regulate your dishwasher and your stove. And that's why the contrast is so stark right now. The left wants to talk about compassion, but compassion for whom? Compassion for the criminal? Compassion for MS-13, for the fugitive? Compassion for the NGO just making millions doing nothing, pushing nonsense? As long as, again, you're kicking back to the Democrat Party, it's fine. Compassion for the politician who doesn't want to admit the policy failed and it was wrong, and we spent billions of dollars probably pushing this crap? How about something simple? How about compassion for the families who did everything right and still got sacrificed on the altar of Democrat ideology? How about compassion for the American citizens who were told for years, that their pain was just inconvenient to the narrative? This is why enforcement matters. This is why competence actually matters. This is why the law matters. Because when serious people are in charge, we can have actual rule of law. Criminals get hunted down, as they should. And America stops apologizing for protecting its own people. And when unserious people are in charge, guys, you get World War XI. You get congressional tantrums. You get bureaucrats inventing fake climate authority. You get open borders. That's the choice. So we're not doing any World War XI history lessons, guys. We're going to keep putting America first. And that matters. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure we keep getting this message out, okay? It matters so much because the entire scam depends on normal Americans being too tired to fight back, okay? Too disinterested, too weak. Don't get tired. Don't let them win. Don't be apathetic to any of these things, okay? Make sure you're subscribing so you never miss one of these episodes. Make sure you like it right now so we can beat the algorithm. Make sure you share it with your friends as you get off, okay? Check out our great sponsors down below in the video description because it takes guts to support a show like this, okay? These are the things and the questions that our media is supposed to be asking and stating and showing you, but they won't because they're in on the scam, okay? You guys are a big part of that. So like, share, subscribe, okay? Check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Apple Podcasts. Share that with your friends as well. Stay strong, stay engaged, stay informed, and always stay a little bit triggered. Thank you guys, and I'll talk to you all again very soon. And I apologize not doing the show on time, but like I said, I'm like 12 hours ahead of you guys in a different part of the world, doing some work. We have to get this out, but I apologize breaking up the schedule a little bit. It matters. Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll talk to you all again very soon.